So let's assume now, for the sake of this discussion, that you've already decided you're going to implement a captive insurance company in connection with your operating business. One of the first questions that comes up with our clients here at Goodspeed and Merrill is, how do I set up the structure for this new captive insurance company enterprise? And there's basically three ways to look at this. There's outside, inside, or side by side. And what I mean by that is the following. I'll start with the easiest one, which is inside. One of the easiest ways to structure ownership of a captive, and a lot of this is going to depend on a number of varying factors, not the least of which is how your operating business is structured. Is it structured with a broad group of diverse ownership with varying interests in either cash flow or growth or exit strategy, that sort of thing? So there's a lot of non-captive related questions that will come up in determining how to best structure a captive. But the easiest way is to basically set that up right underneath the operating company. So you may even have already operating divisions or subsidiaries underneath your operating company. This would just become another one of those operating subsidiaries. Its line of business would be insurance, which would insure the main operating business or any of those other divisional subsidiaries. The premium going from those subsidiaries or the operating parent to the subsidiary captive, all that still is contained within that structure and the existing ownership. So that keeps it really simple and can be very effective and efficient in achieving your risk management objectives. The side-by-side is the next logical step, which is we set up a new holding company above the existing operating company. That new holding company's ownership would typically mirror what was originally in place with the ownership of the operating company, but rather than have that captive come down underneath the operating company, we would set it up as a sister entity, so that you would have your operating entity with any of its relevant subsidiaries or divisional organizations. Then you'd have side by side with that a sister company that would be set up to own and operate the captive enterprise. The premium there also going from the operating entity and or its subsidiaries to the new captive insurance company, all of them held under the same ownership group with this new holding company up top. The outside approach gets a little more creative, a lot more options, a lot more things to think about in terms of how to implement that, how to structure it. But the basic gist of this approach is simply that the operating company and its structure stays completely unaffected. The captive insurance company is set offside, arguably off balance sheet, owned by a new entity, trust, or some other person that's not associated with the ownership of the existing operating company. And with that, the premium is moving from the operating business to this new captive enterprise under this outside ownership structure. And like I say, there's a lot of things that can be done there. But that's usually where the discussion starts, is kind of figuring out which of those ownership structures achieves the objectives for the client in a particular case. But it's the first hurdle to then moving past. Once you've decided to actually proceed with a captive insurance company, that's your next step. So I hope that will give you some insight, something to think about when it comes to the next steps in setting up your captive insurance company. And as always, we would love to be able to sit down with you, discuss these things with you, and help you map out how it would best fit into your organization.